Welcome back to the Hotelier Lounge podcast. We give you direct access to the world's leading hotel and hospitality experts, helping you create a one-of-a-kind experience, generating 5-star reviews, increasing your bottom line, and setting you apart from the competition. And now your hosts, thought leaders in the interior design industry, Liat and Shmuel Siegel. This week, we're speaking with one of our amazing guests, Carrie Thornton. And she's going to be talking to us a little bit about the disability industry, accessibility and disability industry. She's going to tell us a little bit about who she is, what her background is, and give us some fun insights. So, Carrie, take it away.
Yeah, hi, I'm Carrie Thornton, and I run the company Whole Support Services, and I help people who are struggling with a significant medical condition in the family, and I help the whole family to live well and adjust. I specialise in neurological conditions, which are those that affect the brain and the nerves, so Parkinson's, MS, spinal cord injury, dementia, brain injury, stroke, and I also provide consultancy to businesses about accessibility, inclusiveness, and also helping their staff in times of medical crisis. I'm aiming to be an ally to people with disabilities from my place of privilege as an able-bodied person. So I'm not claiming to speak for disabled people. I'm just trying to throw some ideas out there for those of us that don't necessarily get the exposure to people with disabilities.
That's awesome. Wow. I am super excited to have you here. I was reading through your very well thought out answers to the questions that we had sent over to you. And, this is a topic that I really don't know enough about. And I'm super excited to have you here so that you can talk to us and teach our listeners a little bit about what you do and how you help businesses on a practical level. So welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And not to mention, I wanted to add on to that the fact that this is really, Liat and I mentioned earlier, this is really exciting because it's really one of the few things when it comes to the hotel industry where people are really, you don't think about disabilities when you're thinking about vacation, you're thinking about yourself. So I think this is so great for us to come and discuss this because it is a real problem, and, probably I would assume there's probably millions of people with these conditions around the world that are in major need of a break and a vacation and can really use some TLC. And the fact is that, as we're going to discuss, there's really not a lot of options there at all.
Or if there are options, maybe they're not advertised enough, like Carrie was mentioning in her information that she sent over. Maybe there's not enough information out there or enough thought that really goes
into it at all, because I would assume that most places where people are taking this into consideration oftentimes is because of legal regulations, and they probably just do whatever it takes to fulfill their requirements and move on. So I am so excited. I'm absolutely stoked to discuss this. I think it's a great area that really is in desperate need of a facelift, reimagine, to completely be reimagined. And I think
spark some imagination for all of our listeners that are listening to this podcast. I think that even if we don't know exactly how to tackle a topic moving forward, knowing that at least shedding light on the topic and recognizing that this is an issue and that this is something that maybe we need to look into further, or maybe there's a opportunity for setting yourselves apart from other hotels or other resorts or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is, the fact that everyone gets so uncomfortable discussing these topics usually, because they're not sure, and they're not sure really how to approach them and who to speak to and how do you not offend anyone. So I think that idea is just a proof that this is exactly where you want to go as a business owner. This is exactly what you want to explore, because it's so much opportunity that can be explored and can be and can really not just cater to your disabled guests, because I think for many people with disabilities, I think it's just what they need is just much more noticeable than what we may need but not realize. So if they need access to electricity because they might have special equipment that need access to electricity by their bed, chances are your guests that do not have disabilities, they will also need access to electricity, by the bed, because they might have other devices. If your hotel isn't designed well to cater to people with disabilities, then it's probably not designed well to cater to people without disabilities. So I think it's really exciting. I think this is such a massively important discussion to have and really explore this, because this is a real need out there, and I'm really, really, really excited to move forward with this.
Did we say excited?
Did I say excited?
No, I felt that you weren't really engaged.
No. Yeah.
And this also goes back to, when you reached out to me and you were like, hey, this is what I can talk about. Like, I didn't even think about it from that perspective. And this goes back to really listening to the consumer and understanding the consumer's side of things, not just from a business ROI perspective, right? Obviously, there's a return on investment if you're listening to what the needs are of the diverse consumer market. So, yay! Yeah. Did I mention excited?
Yeah. Also, just a side note, if we say anything that is accidentally, offensive or hurtful in any way, we are not as familiar as you are, of course, with dealing with disabilities. So, please let us know, and we do apologize in advance.
And this is a great exercise also for our listeners to also learn the language.
And to be mindful, be mindful of the people around you, because you might not even realize who you might be speaking to. That not all disabilities are visible on the surface, and really just being mindful. Or maybe
they have a loved one that has a disability.
Yeah, and just being mindful and sensitive, I think, is always important, no matter who you're speaking to. So
and we're all going to make mistakes. The point is that we need to be willing to be corrected, and I don't claim to have everything. Like I say, I am not saying that I am speaking for the community of people with disabilities, because I'm a professional who works with them, and I'm just bringing my observations to the field as somebody that would like to not see my clients struggle in the way that they do.
Wow.
Somebody who would actually like to not find that when I talk about my work, that other able-bodied people think I'm a saint, because I work with these poor, unfortunate souls, actually just to bring about something that I can do within my realm of influence that means that everybody's getting a fair and reasonable treatment.
That's awesome. Wow. Have you ever traveled with an individual with disabilities? Have you gone out with them to different resorts or locations like that before? Or
no, it actually one of the main problems is that if in my work I mention people taking a holiday, they go, "Oh no, not possible."
Wow.
They're on your 6 days.
That's a pain point.
That is.
Yeah.
Like, hello, pain point. Like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have in my own work, I wrote a book about an area that I grew up in, and I did research buildings that were wheelchair accessible and had other facilities for people with disabilities, just to add a chapter about it. And that was also where I thought, oh, it's so hard to actually get a true impression of what's available.
Wow.
And also looking at photos of what's available, here's room with disability shower, and here's, boutique, beautiful room for able-bodied people,
Wow.
and just kind of thinking, okay, that's not as,
wow.
It's just like, oh, we've met the disability need, but we don't need to make it pretty.
Wow.
It's really shocking. You have some really well-known people out there with disabilities. I mean, celebrities, is Michael J. Fox, right, has Parkinson's, right? Right. Yeah. I mean,
Christopher Reeve when he was alive.
Right, exactly. You have people that have means that I'm sure would love to be able to have access to, 5-star resorts. People who may not have as many of the ability to go and travel, but would like to at least once in a while have at least a nice place to go. And to think that these places do not create, the places who do have disabilities are just trying to hit the check marks and not really create a place for them to be able to.
Or if they do, I think that something that, we do as interior designers is make sure that there's consistency from online brand to offline. So from the time that you see the space online, so if you're searching for a place that is accessibility friendly, but they don't have that advertised online, like you were mentioning in your answers, then that's where the disconnect is, and they can't even find that place to begin with. We have targeted ads, right? Rather than just, sending ads out to the mass public, we have targeted ads that can reach people with disabilities who have, shown interest through, their Google searches and stuff like that. We have that data now, and we can definitely do a better job at reaching out to them and just letting them know what's available for them.
And, coming to think of it, I don't think even Airbnb has an option to search for disability. Do they? I don't think so. So
I was literally just on there and I thought I should probably check this out, but the Airbnbs that I've stayed in have never been appropriate.
Yeah, I don't think it's an option from what I recall.
They are homes.
No,
so that
I'm sure there are, but still, I mean, I'm just saying as far, because we usually speak to hoteliers and anyone in the hospitality industry. This is a huge untapped market. If Airbnb isn't catering to them, and these individuals are searching for a place to go, I mean. That if you just put out the word that you have that option and you have beautiful rooms catering to people with disabilities, you will be the address.
I think you should definitely check. Go on their app now.
I'm gonna go check. And
Well, and I also think there's, disability conjures up different images for different people. So obviously the most obvious one is potentially somebody in a wheelchair. But somebody in a wheelchair can be completely cognitively intact and able to hold down a job, have a family, drive a car, care for themselves, or they can still be cognitively intact but need help to care for themselves. Or they could be in a wheelchair and have a cognitive impairment and need other people to help them.
Yep.
Other people have chronic illnesses, chronic disabilities, pain, difficulty mobilizing as far, and they have difficulties with communication, or maybe with vision and hearing. And loads of the older people develop these problems, and it's almost like it's okay to get old and get deaf, old and deaf, these kind of common phrases in our language. But it's the exclusion of the younger people that have these problems. And some people are born with a disability and they grow up and they adjust and they learn to do things. And other people acquire a disability. And so, if you have acquired a disability from a point where you were one of these people that was able-bodied, then the adjustment process is a journey in itself.
Yeah.
And one thing that we know is that a lot of people will lose their friends and their contacts and their roles and their hobbies, and because that's where their identity was as an able-bodied person, and now they have to redefine themselves, which is what I help people to do, to become as happy and as content with their new situation. But there are things that I can't mediate against, like, barriers in the environment that the society as a whole says, well, we don't really care that you can't get to this place.
Right.
We don't really care if you can't travel for work or travel for fun. We don't really care if you have to pay for 5-star accommodation, in order to get on a holiday and to get access to facilities. Or they say, well, you know, it's okay because it's Auntie Ethel who's 99 and, you know, we're going to bring her out to a hotel for a wedding, and everyone can do that for a weekend. You know, everyone's willing to engage so that Auntie Ethel's at the wedding. But what happens when that's going, you know, when that's going for basically, you know, 6 months, a year, 2 years, forever? You know, the ability of people to stay involved with people with disabilities does diminish a lot more than when they acquire a disability than when they are born with a disability.
Wow.
Yes, and I did check.
Wow.
I did look up on Airbnb. I did see that they do have a wheelchair accessible. Like they will let you know if a location is wheelchair accessible. But I think that's basically as far as it goes. And like you mentioned, there's so many different types of disabilities. Not everyone is confined to a wheelchair, and not everyone in a wheelchair has the same needs. So.
Yeah. And I mean, it's great. You can get in to the property, but can you actually then get into the shower and can your carer fit in with you if that's how you need to travel? It's a wheelchair that's one that you push yourself is a completely different size to one that you push. That's motorized.
Yep.
And you've also got the bariatric issues as well, in that, you know, as people are already getting bigger, which in itself creates medical problems. When people get bigger and become disabled, either because of obesity or not, you know, it creates, everything gets bigger, the equipment gets bigger, and so the space that's required gets bigger. And
Wow.
But the thing that's reassuring is that some architects have sat down and thought about this and come up with universal design principles. They may have to amend them a little bit for bariatric cases, you know. Yeah. But there are universal design principles that people can use and know that they're going to capture a large proportion of the disabled population.
Got it. And so what you're saying right now is you believe that the majority of spaces don't accommodate for that?
Definitely public places that have to do, and obviously most hotels probably do, but why should the person have to pay a 5-star price to get their trip away? Or alternatively, only stay in motels, because motels, we know, are often very good at providing wheelchair accessible rooms. You know, the travel experience is different if you go camping, if you go in a ranch, if you go in a lodge, if you go in a, if you go in a hotel of 1 star up to 5 star, you know, what you're trying to buy from the travel experience shouldn't just be defined by your disability.
Right.
Got it.
And also, from what I'm understanding, it seems that the different locations, the different facilities that do cater to individuals with disabilities, right? They only cater to specific disabilities. They don't cater to all disabilities, or at least a large range of disabilities, right? So it seems like there's almost like kind of like in our minds, we think, oh, they have a wheelchair, they're disabled. If they don't have a wheelchair, they're not. And if they have a wheelchair, they probably all need the same thing. And that's really an issue that you know, when we go out vacationing, there could be a list of like 100, you know, maybe 20, 30 different options. You know, do you want with the pool, with the internet? You know, we have all these different options of what we're looking for. But when it comes to disabilities, wheelchair accessible or not? You know, there's like, you know, there's that's it.
And what's the point of having a pool if you can't access it?
Exactly, right. And we know that they have ramps for pools with plastic wheelchairs available for people with disabilities. You know, why are these things not being at least partially implemented or fully implemented? There are special elevators or communicated. Right, exactly.
So they don't have to go and do their own research.
Right, there should be the same sort of checklist that we have when we're searching for a room. There should be for disabilities, where it's not one option. There is a whole drop down list where, okay, are you wheelchair accessible? Okay, is it a motorized wheelchair, or is it a non-motorized wheelchair? Are you going to be staying by yourself or with a medical, you know, provider, or an individual who's helping you? You know, all these different options, you know, I believe that are just really not reflected at all from what I see.
That's exactly why when you have entered the hospital system and your life has changed in an instant, so I'm talking about an acquired disability, and you're on your rehab journey, you're probably not thinking about getting away. But once all of that process is finished and you're thinking about, okay, well, what am I going to do with my life now?
Yeah.
It's like, but the decisions of how am I going to run my day-to-day living are hard enough, because you've got money problems, you've got the impact on the family, you've got how people treat you in the community, you've got whether or not you're working. And so, what time's available, how long it takes you to get dressed. So why would you add on a whole bunch of searching for a hotel when you pretty much feel that you're not going to be successful? Whether that's the truth or not,
it's just that
burden on them just adds on to an already very big burden.
I think you really hit the nail on the head over there, because I know my dad has, like I mentioned to you earlier, has some minor disabilities that were acquired. And I know in his mind, he basically gave up on traveling. He can't even foresee going anywhere. He's like, if I go anywhere, I need to take special medication that
every time we bring it up,
it just
it's stressed out.
A tremendous amount of anxiety just thinking about it, because it's so frustrating. It's so painful to think about traveling. I mean, we don't realize, but if you're traveling internationally, you have to think about the flight, right? For many people, the flight alone is unbearable.
And I feel like if more thought goes into the hospitality industry, then it's just going to be a ripple effect.
100%. I mean, I do know that there are airlines that have special locations for people with disabilities, but I know that it's really not widespread. It's really, far and few between.
To become a standard thing.
And I mean, obviously people, again, we're looking at the spectrum of what disabilities and what people need, but even just giving people with disabilities the capacity to take their own equipment with them is something that airlines have done, because
with no additional charge.
Okay, they're taking up more space, but don't they deserve to? I don't know, maybe they wouldn't like it, but maybe they don't want special treatment. But in some cases, I think as able-bodied people, we can grant them some privileges. But one of the things that's very interesting over here in New Zealand is we have a lot of people that come in from the Pacific Islands, and so the connections are very strong between the families in both locations. And so they want to be able to go back and visit their family, and they know that they're going to a place that is a lot less designed for them, and sometimes they're willing to take on that challenge. But the less that they need that challenge, the better. Because nobody likes stress. We also know that stress doesn't help our health. So what's the point of all running around stressed all the time?
Exactly.
And your holiday, obviously we're supposed to be flexible and things can go wrong. Again, even the type of holiday that you have to select, I'm not necessarily going to be able to jump on a bus tour for 6 days through Europe. I get to go to one place and see it in depth, which is fine. Some people might just want to sit on the beach for 6 days. But what if you did want to do that bus tour?
Right.
For 6 days through Europe? Or what if you wanted to be on that barge? What if you wanted to go to this place in San Francisco and then travel down to LA and then fly to New York? The more that we make it difficult, then the more people we exclude from opportunities.
Right. Wow.
And what I guess is my most concerning thing is that, we are getting older, and if we love traveling now, are we suddenly going to accept, oh well, that's the end of my traveling days? That's what people have to do this day and age.
Wow.
But why in 20 years should that be the case? Because we can see the problem, we can see it happening now. All these people that are like, oh yeah, I did my traveling when I was young because it's the only thing that young people can do.
Wow.
Why? We want to keep traveling. Why should we have to stop just because we develop a disability? which may just come with age, or because we acquire it because of the nature of society, you know, through these causes, obesity, car accidents, things that can happen without us
Yeah. Wow.
really having much say in the matter.
Wow. This topic is so involved. It's
And
I think we're definitely going to have you back for another one, because this is just this is incredible. And I think that we're definitely going to hear from our listeners about, you know, I can almost guarantee you that our listeners are going to write into us and just, you know, tell us how their eyes are opened and they're going to start implementing it. And once
Well,
that
I can definitely help them do that.
yes, I would love to help them, of course. I think we both could in such a massive way, but I think that, you know, once we start hearing back from our listeners and people who are starting to implement this, you know, we can get more involved and we can get feedback and data from them and just you know, this into such a to the next level, because this is huge.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, there's something else that I just realized now, that one of the largest growing segments of the industry for the past, I think it's like almost close to a decade already, since the economy crashed back in 2007. One of the largest growing segments of the industry has been technology for the elderly. Because I know in the U.S. the baby boomer generation is now older, and there's a tremendous amount of need, and the tech industry knows that it's basically recession proof at this point. You know, it's been like that for a while, and anyone who's listening who is in any way involved in that part of the industry, this is a wide open area to really invest into that isn't going away, both for the elderly and for those who are disabled in any other way. And I think that there's so much room to innovate when it comes to not just little gadget that we wear in our hands, you know, something more impactful in a real way.
Meaningful.
Meaningful, because I could think of, just as we're discussing this, I could think of different reasons why some industries might not be innovating. Sometimes it's pure ignorance or just the discomfort of thinking about it. Sometimes it might be a business decision. Like I think like an airline, the airlines are working so hard to capitalize on every square inch, on the airplane. So I wouldn't be surprised for them. It may be more of a business decision, but if we can work together to innovate and
but it's also, I mean, the shaming that goes on, if for the people that are having to take up more than that space, you know, I'm a strong believer that there are people who have an addiction to food, just as there are people that have an addiction for alcohol and an addiction for drugs, and that the willpower is not sufficient to solve that problem. Right. It won't be the case for everybody, but for some people. But who are we to judge why that person is overweight? Steroids can do it. If you're having certain steroids for cancer treatment, it makes you incredibly hungry.
Psychological reasons. Right, many for people, psychological reasons, stress, and other maybe mourning, other issues. Yeah,
exactly. And so the shaming is not necessary. Of course, that person probably wants to be healthier, but are they equipped in their life to create that result?
Wow.
No.
Well, some people probably are, and some people probably aren't. You know, some people will have been trying for years to solve the problem, and until they find the right solution for them, it's not going to happen.
Right.
So, you know, if they need to take up 2 seats, it has to be done in such a way that there's no shame about it.
Wow.
That it's not treating these people as second-class citizens. And what's really interesting about capitalism, I suppose, I don't know if that's exactly the right word, but this ethos in our culture, which is self-responsibility. We are going to advertise to you everything that's A, wrong with you, and B, that will fix it. So we're going to put models to show you how skinny you have to be. But we're also going to sell you and alter your food, you know, grow it with pesticides, do all these things that could potentially be harmful to you. But when you get sick, it's your fault that you didn't ignore those adverts.
Right.
That's
we're gonna,
okay.
okay, you're not allowed to advertise tobacco in the West now, but what do? They go out and advertise it in Asia and in other developing markets. So ultimately, we still blame the smokers for not giving up smoking.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
but socially, it's something that is very pervasive in schools, and I don't know about that area. I don't know why it gains traction, but it does. And once people are addicted, it's very hard for them to stop. So ultimately, this idea of personal responsibility, that we're going to absolutely try really hard to entice you to eat inappropriately, but you have to ignore it.
Yeah. And then
we're going to punish you when you fail.
And I think that's really a great point, and something that is constructive that a lot of companies can do. I know that the last time I traveled on an airplane, there was an individual on the flight that was overweight and specifically purchased an additional seat to have a space to sit comfortably. And for whatever reason, the airline had an issue and the seats were not properly reserved. And the individual had to be basically shamed in front of the entire flight to have to argue for his right to have that extra seating.
Especially when they paid for it.
Exactly, right? And he's like,
that's as fair as you can be. Somebody taking responsibility for their difficulties that society isn't necessarily willing to help them address.
Exactly. Yeah. And the fact that the airline, had to then go and the individuals working really for the airline had to then go and basically shame the individual in front of the entire flight to have to fight for a seat that he paid for. I thought it was really, really horrible. And I think this is something that we can really take a great takeaway for, a very practical, not, no innovation needed kind of solution of at least create the services for your clientele to be able to properly reserve their seating, to be able to be comfortable where they're staying, and in a way that should be mindful that they shouldn't have to go through such experiences, right? You have someone elderly, you have someone traveling with an issue, it's something that, you have an option, even I mean, this is the 21st century, and I think
and that's also like you're saying, we have services, and then we have the customer service. Obviously these are not my own direct experiences, but things that I'm aware of happening is, we bring along a service dog and the people talk to the service dog. I mean, they ask the service dog question that really should be directed to the owner, or they pet the service dog.
Right. When they shouldn't.
Right. It's working.
Right.
It should not be petted.
Right.
It's also one of the other problems that I heard about from a person who does travel with a service dog is that other people who do not have service dogs claim that their pets are service dogs so that they can take them onto the planes, trains, buses without putting them in storage. But the behavior of an untrained dog, service dogs just have a way higher level of training.
Yes.
And obviously people that have service dogs are aware that this is your pet that just knows how to sit properly. But it could create a dynamic in some situations, like if you're bringing on an animal that isn't actually another dog, like a turkey was the story that this lady had told me. That service dog hasn't been trained to deal with somebody's support turkey, so again, it's actually putting people at risk by us taking advantage of their situation.
Right.
And so, there's so many things that we can do to not be horrible and not be mean.
And not to mention that right, and not to mention these dogs, the service dogs are very, very hard to train, and they're very sensitive. So I know my wife's cousin has a service dog, and one of her previous service dogs was pushed by a staircase by an individual and
fell down the staircase.
It fell down the staircase, and the dog could not be working anymore as a service dog because it was traumatized. And I think that just these simple steps of mindfulness, and you see someone with a service dog, give them a courtesy. If you don't know what to do or how to handle, ask. Right?
Yeah.
Ask.
and
Yes, I think we're afraid to ask. Now, our society, we're starting to talk more and more about diversity. We're talking more about, social justice issues. And this is one of those things, where whatever it is, if we don't know, ask. If we don't know how to deal with it, if we, sometimes, the other person feels uncomfortable bringing it up, and it's our duty to be mindful of it, and to be mindful that there could be these issues, that there could be these sensitivities, and ask.
But also there's asking, would you like some help, and then waiting for the answer, because they probably do have a process to get their wheelchair in the car that they've practiced and they've got down to a fine art. And then there's asking, so what happened to you? Why are you like you are?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Which is less appropriate.
Yeah.
Also just having some of the sensitivity about, would you, if you have a hidden problem, go and be, just because this person has something that is visible, it doesn't mean that they have opened themselves up to, so why did you lose your leg? Or, you wouldn't ask an elderly person, so why did you get deaf? And they say, I partied too much when I was 19. Listened to too loud music in my speaker. So it's kind of like, why do we suddenly think that because they're a particular age, particular gender, particular disability, that the rules of courtesy don't apply? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you wouldn't ask an elderly person with that disability, why are you asking a younger person?
Yep, 100%. 100%.
Definitely.
It's just some of these thinking things that we sometimes miss.
And we need to train. Right. And we need to train our staff also.
Yeah.
If you own a hotel, or you own a restaurant, or whatever, and whatever business in the hospitality industry, or any industry as a whole, we have to train our staff. We have to train. It's our duty as business owners to educate and to bring to light these situations, so that we can become better as a society as a whole.
At the very least, I know that there are plenty of services available for sensitivity training. So if you can't, there's no way you can possibly train everyone to be prepared for just about anything, because there's just so many different variations and different people on different parts of the spectrum.
But at least the baseline.
But at least you know how to be know how to be sensitive, so you can treat people better. And I know sometimes it's a cultural issue, but as a business, it really shouldn't matter what the culture is. You really it's a requirement. You need to train people to be sensitive, because if your customer service is not,
and lead by example.
Yeah, lead by example, exactly. If you and this is going to also reflect online. Nowadays everyone can review things online, and if you have an impeccable customer service, your guests are going to appreciate it whether they're disabled or not, and that's going to reflect the reviews you're going to get online. So it's really in your benefit to, in this day and age, to have really impeccable customer service.
And I think, it's easy to say, it's cultural, it's just the culture. Obviously, if you are part of that culture and you have the disability, it is, you need allies from that culture.
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to appreciate a British middle-class person coming in and telling them how to live. But
100% agree, though. Yes,
we need to look at the communal values that we're trying to propagate in the world, in the industry, across life, and across our interactions. Because I see it in rehab as well, that there are cultural behaviors that exist, like the sick rule, like, I'm sick, if I do absolutely nothing and everyone runs around after me, I'll magically get better, which is fine when it's a cold or the flu, but it's not fine when it's a stroke.
Right.
And so, I do see this, and I do have to work with this, and so then it's coming down to that deeper level of what are we trying to achieve here. People obviously don't necessarily get a lot of exposure to people that have disabilities in their general day-to-day life, perhaps. And even the Western society didn't treat disabled people well when they put them in institutions, and they still don't treat them well.
Right.
Nobody has got dibs on perfect treatment.
Yep.
So there are definitely going to be people that are more au fait with a particular culture's workings, and to be able to dig deeper into how it needs to be handled to get the results that the business owner's looking for.
Yep.
So for example, using the principles from that culture to help the staff to understand.
But even understanding that, exactly.
Yeah.
And even understanding that that's a thing, even understanding that there's a cultural component to it, and that it's not just a universal kind of solution is already one step in the right direction and one step closer to creating a deeper solution.
Like you said before, if a specific culture is ignorant of the needs of
that only means that they need to educate.
Right, which means that we need to have emissaries.
Well, and it's interesting because when I was in Vietnam, I saw so many very innovative wheelchairs and methods of transportation for people that couldn't walk. And, the way that they were set up, some were kind of trikes that were pushed by hand, some were boards, and, they weren't perfect. But in Western society, you get to sit like this. This is what a wheelchair looks like, and this is how you're going to sit, and this is how it has to be propelled. We're not willing to innovate in the same way that they are in Vietnam. And so I actually think that there's a lot that we could look at in terms of changing the innovation that's available in both societies, because obviously Vietnam isn't necessarily putting in pressure cushions to stop people getting pressure injuries. They're not necessarily thinking about preventing postural deformities, so on and so forth. But the West is thinking, well, but we've made this many chairs, and that's how a wheelchair is. I'm sorry, we can't make it.
Don't reinvent the wheel, but you should reinvent the wheel. Thanks for listening to the Hotelier Lounge podcast, where we make it our business to help you increase your business. Head to thehotelierlounge.com to catch up, unlock our exclusive offers, and access show notes for all of our past episodes. You can also visit our LinkedIn or Facebook group to continue the conversation. If you have any questions, comments, or if you'd like to be featured or become a sponsor, visit thehotelierlounge.com. We hope you enjoyed today's show. Have a powerful rest of your week. See you next time.